I just want to get your very quick opinion. Now, the news broke yesterday on the WWE website that the Revival have been granted their release. Now,
Yeah,
according to the WWE website, I'm reading it here, Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder of the Revival released effective today, Friday the 10th of April 2020. WWE and the Revival have agreed on their immediate release from WWE. We wish them all the best in their future endeavors. So it does look like Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder are gone. And there was some speculation that maybe one of them was injured and that injury time would be bolted onto the end of their contract. It doesn't appear so. And Ryan Saturn confirmed on his social pages yesterday that it appears from his sources that they do not have a no-compete clause. Now, usually when talent leaves WWE, there's a 3-month no-compete clause where they can't wrestle or sign any contracts with new promotions until that 90-day is up. But it doesn't appear to be the case here. Now, me and you spoke, Michael, off air about this very, very briefly. We discussed that there isn't much wrestling going on around the world at the moment. There aren't many promotions for them to kind of go and, apply their trades with. But there's a lot of speculation about where they might end up eventually. What's your thoughts on this, how it all went down, and who would you like to see them wrestle for, Michael?
well, like everyone else, yourself and everyone around the world, these two were fantastic wrestlers. I thought what happened with them in WWE, unfortunately, like a lot of people that have been brought through, it hasn't worked. They've been not treated the way that they should have. However, I'm glad that they're away from it. Me personally, I think it's a good thing that they've come away from it. They can be who they want to be. They can, because you can clearly tell that they love the wrestling. Yeah. They love wrestling. I mean, look at the match that they had with DIY at NXT. It was Canada. It was just amazing. For me, the easiest option because of social media is AEW. Everyone thinks they'll go to AEW. However, with the way that they are and the way that they look and their style, it'd be quite interesting to see them at NWA for a little bit. You know, if they are going to end up going to AEW, it'd be quite cool to see them do a little bit of a circuit run. So whether it be even Ring of Honor, but NWA, the whole gimmick, the whole way the style of the wrestle would fit NWA perfectly because they are NWA wrestlers. However, it would be quite unique for them to be at New Japan as well because it's a fresh new style. It'd be something that they haven't had there for a while. I mean, look at when Cody went over. I mean, I know he's not wrestling anymore, but like when Albert went across as the great Bernard, it was something different, and I think it would work as well in New Japan, having a completely different, fresh look and view of wrestling instead of just doing, as they say, no flips, just wrestling, that type of thing. It'd be quite cool to see different comparisons on that. But ultimately, they've got so many wrestling companies out there that they could go to, and so many wrestlers that will be biting the lip, wanting to have a wrestling match with them. Again, as you said, Young Bucks is the easiest option because of their love of each other and the fact that they've known each other for years. But I think there's quite a lot of places that they would go, and I don't think it's down to money. But again, they've said that they've put across that they love their family. So for that alone, I would say that they would stay in America. Now, whether that ends up with AEW, Ring of Honor, even New Japan America, if that ever comes about, especially after with what's going down at the moment around the world, if that still goes on after the lockdown is lifted, you never know, they might go there. It all depends on what type of contract they have. They could have an open contract. They could be locked in. You don't know. They could have like the whole thing with Jericho being able to move across to New Japan. It'd be quite interesting, but I do think that there are a lot of potential. Well, I know there are a lot of matches out there that people will want to watch, and it wouldn't surprise me if someone's already made a top 50 list of dream matches already, like what we're going to do. But it won't surprise me if someone's already made a list of saying these are who you need to face. Well, it'd be awesome to see these two face off against each other. Yeah, I just think they're phenomenal wrestlers, and unfortunately not being utilised the way that they should have been on the main roster. So.
Yeah, I think the problem with that is, I mean, they were certainly recognised for their wrestling ability on NXT. They did have, I think, 4 championships when they came up onto the main roster amongst Raw and SmackDown. But, you know, having the tag gold strapped around your waist doesn't really kind of demonstrate how you're being looked after as characters. And I think they felt that they were not being utilised for their wrestling skill. And to be honest with you, maybe the WWE main roster isn't the best place for them then if they view their wrestling style in high regard, as opposed to, we know what the WWE it does with its wrestlers. It does focus more on the gimmicks and the characters and the storylines instead of the straight 30-minute 5-star classics, which is what they were getting in NXT. But I'm happy that they've finally been able to get the break that they deserved, get the release that they deserved. One interesting thing you said is regarding money. Now, if it's not about money and if they're not worried about where they end up, then I'm quite intrigued by them possibly ended up in NWA. And of course, we know that that's a promotion that is held in high regard, especially their NWA Power Show every Tuesday on YouTube, of course, and the tremendous talent. And like I say, it's only an hour per week, so it's very digestible as well. But they do focus a lot more on the in-ring product, more realistic storylines, so that's a possibility. Definitely quite intrigued by the fact they might go to New Japan, maybe Ring of Honor. I think ultimately, it will all boil down to AEW, and whether it be by the end of this year or early next year. I think, we've got to see that Revival versus Young Bucks match. I think that's the match that everybody wants to see out of those 2 teams. But very, very interesting. And I'm sure it's quite a fast-moving development. We'll probably hear more. But what we do know at the moment is they're no longer with WWE. They have a no complete peak clause, if that makes sense. So they don't have to kind of sit on the sidelines for 90 days. And it'll be interesting to see where they end up next. And they could do a Marty Scurll and just end up, appearing on an episode of NWA, or they could bide their time and wait for the right contracts to come their way. But yes, any final thoughts on that, Michael?
Yeah, as you said, I completely agree with you. There's, personally, I think it's not down to money, because if it was, if reports are true, they'd just they'd just get on with it and just stay with WWE. But you can clearly see on social media, you can see it in the way that they wrestle, you can see it in the face on screen that they weren't happy with how they were used. And unfortunately, no matter how good you are, if you are treated a certain way on a product, people will go off you. No matter how good you are, you could be the best wrestler in the world, but if you're not put across that way, then no one will invest in you, and that's clearly the issue that they had. I mean, for me, the only problem I've got if they go to AEW is, at the moment, they've only got the one show. So depending on how long it takes for this next show to come on, they've got a lot of talent that have not been on telly and not been utilised. And the only issue I've got, which is why I think NWA would be quite cool, even New Japan, because they do quite a lot of different tournaments and shows through the year, is that they get signed up, they go work with the mates and that, but it either pushes everyone else down or they get put on the back burner until this new show comes around or until there's a spot for them. I just don't want them to be jumping in with both feet and not being treated. I'm not saying they should be treated like royalty, but they should be utilised the way that they should be, like they did in NXT. That's all. So it'll be, as you said, it'll be interesting to see in the next few months. I think what they should do, if they are going to go to AEW, is do what they've been doing with Cross at NXT, and that is do video vignettes.
Yeah. And
put them across. So even if you don't see them for 6 months because of the current predicament that's going around the world, you can put video packages out there building to their arrival, which would be quite cool to see.
Yeah, definitely. No, but that's probably one of the hottest topics out there, and that broke yesterday. So it'll be interesting to see what we see with those 2 individuals down the line.